that the people have been like, why do you behave this way? And I'm like, I don't know. Yeah. And like, I defaulted for a long time to being like, because I'm stupid, okay? because I'm stupid.
You know who I am, and you're gonna let me in. I know that I'm under your skin.
Suck my fucking titties. This is not your final girl. It's a podcast about liking the horror genre and being a woman. I'm Candace.
I'm Gaby.
I'm Ariel.
We were talking about our
early childhood memories of horror.
Our early horror childhood memories.
Yes.
And a lot of my memories involve my parents exposing me to things that were too scary for someone my age. And either not realizing it or like kind of feeling bad about it later. Which I was just talking to them just now about doing this. And they reminded me of something that I had forgotten entirely about, was that they took me on a haunted hayride when I was little. I was like 4 years old or something. Oh, and I was terrified and I wouldn't look at anything. I like ended up just with my head between my knees, scared, crying. And they felt super bad. They were like, oh, that was kind of scary. We probably shouldn't have done that.
Oh, fuck.
I was like too young, yeah.
Is that gonna fuck her up? That's gonna fuck her up.
They were like, that was the last time that you really like expressed being scared of something, really, though. Like,
it fixed you.
Well, I said when I got scared of things later on, I would get scared of things, but I wouldn't go get them or anything, you know, like I'd be like awake at night because I was scared of something that I watched, but I didn't want to tell them because I didn't want them to like stop letting me watch scary things because I liked it.
My parents didn't let me do that. They didn't let me do that shit. I didn't watch anything. I didn't watch anything that was scary. And I remember asking my mom, you know, Mom, you knew I love scary stuff. Like, you know that. You know I love it now. I watch everything. I read everything. And she's like, yeah, I know. And you were like that. So I knew you didn't need movies. Like, you made it up in your own head. So she... Which is fucked up. Because I would have loved to watch more. But I had, like... I would have really bad... I had a lot of nightmares when I was a kid. I would make up scary stories on my own. That freaked her out, apparently. Yeah. So
she didn't want to feed.
She was like, "You're good, dude. You got this. You're good enough without any other ideas." So I guess that was her thing. Well, because I do remember reading Goosebumps because I had to get it from garage sales. Like I had to sneak money from couch cushions and get Goosebumps
you had,
from
like,
garage sales.
Yeah. Whereas my parents were like, oh, whatever, and then in hindsight we're like, oh, maybe we should have done that.
I still love them, and like the covers are amazing.
There's like a weird nostalgia to it too. Like you remember the bright green.
Yes, I
purple,
love the covers.
And, like, the covers were always tattered.
But the art is always better because that's how I feel about scary stories to tell in the dark. Mm-hmm. The art is fucking amazing. Mm-hmm. The art, you know, I got that from the library when I was in 5th or 6th grade because again, couldn't read it at home, but it gave me nightmares. Like the whole week that I read those books, I had nightmares every night. Mm-hmm. But it was not the stories. The stories were not that scary. It is those disturbing pencil illustrations.
Because that's what you see when you're sleeping that night.
Yeah,
you close your eyes and that's what you see.
That's
you're
what
like,
sticks with you.
Fuck that thing. Scarecrow, not okay.
Yes, Harold. Yeah. Fuck him.
Was that his name?
It's Harold. Absolutely.
Yeah, his name is Harold.
So I'm a little younger, just a little bit younger than you guys. So I think like some of the things I was like a little late on. Mm. But I remember going to the library too, and like I had the advantage or disadvantage that my parents didn't speak English or read English. Mm-hmm. So half the time they didn't know what I was getting. They were just happy that like their daughter was reading. They're like, yeah, fucking read everything. Uh-huh. So I could just pick out whatever books I wanted and I'd take them and I'd read them. But I don't have any like outstanding memories of that specific. Like if I read this book or if I read that book, just kind of having them.
Did you guys tell scary stories though when you were kids? Like was that a thing that you remember at all? Like with your friends sort of thing?
Oh, not even my friends. It was more my parents, like the Mexican folklore.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, which is terrifying because my mom would be like, the crow is your dead grandfather's spirit, and actually terrifying.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. That would be.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, Mom, like, save me.
Yeah. Well, they're Catholic, yeah?
Yes.
Catholicism has some scary-ass imagery.
Yes, very, very scary.
It's always, like, Catholic shit that freaks me out.
Yeah. Yeah, I think For a while, movies about demonic possession used to freak me out the most.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I know who that saint is. So it would freak me out because it was a reality, right? Because we were going to church, so that was what I was being taught, and it was very, like, this is the truth. This is all I knew. So watching a horror movie based on that was chilling. Just, ugh.
Yeah. My grandma was real, like, sort of satanic panic Christian still. She told me really early on that I should never do anything with a Ouija board or with Dungeons and Dragons, because she still thought that Dungeons and Dragons was, like, an evil satanic game that would cause you to murder people eventually. Yeah. And my parents weren't into that stuff or anything, but I had absorbed that. One of my, like, earliest memories of getting really scared by something specifically, it was this X-Files episode called All Souls, I figured out, and it's about these, like, quadruplet girls who are angels. There's, like, demons, like, plaguing them, trying to, like, steal their souls or whatever. They're like little, they're young girls, and I just remember, like, this imagery of one of them's, like, kneeling in the middle of the street with their palms upward, and her eyes are burned out, and it's horrifying. And I looked it up, and this episode aired in 1998.
You're like, how old was I?
So I would have been 8 years old.
Yeah.
My parents just always watched X-Files, and I
just
sat
fine
with them and
with
watched
it.
Yeah. And I remember thinking that was so disturbing. But I was into it. It was always religious imagery.
Yeah.
That's
Extra
freaky.
scary.
I remember for me, we were, because I couldn't watch anything but Twilight Zone was cool, and Twilight Zone's not that scary. You know, I love Twilight Zone
Okay,
still.
it's scarier now.
It's scarier now.
As a grown-up.
Absolutely. And there's some they're iconic. I love Twilight Zone, but the first one I saw, I don't remember the name, but it's the one where the little girl has a fever, and the sun's getting closer and closer and closer. I don't know if you remember that one. And the thermometer, like, explodes in the middle of the episode. But then, you know, the twist is, surprise, it's because she has a fever. But I just remember thinking about, it kind of freaked me out, but for more it felt like a weird horror legacy that I finally got to be a part of. And it was a weird horror, and I guess anything that you're consuming that's media, but there's a lot of nostalgia for some of that older stuff. And so even as a kid, though, you can feel it. You can feel the nostalgia, like you're inheriting some kind of cool nostalgia thing. Like, nostalgia's more now, I think. It grows stronger when you're older. But even as a kid, you're like, I want to be a part of this.
Yeah. I think that's fair. And, I mean, I think that's fair of, like, any genre that you really like is wanting to experience all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The stuff that your parents are psyched about.
Yeah.
I guess if you like your parents. Depends.
Yeah, if you like your parents and you dig their taste or whatever.
Yeah.
My parents did leave me, like, a good amount of media to consume.
I liked my parents. My parents didn't let me consume some shit, but they were still cool.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, your parents are still cool.
Yeah.
I didn't have that at all because of the language barrier.
Yeah.
So, and my parents came here from Mexico, so they had their old Mexican traditional things that, you know, would be passed down, which I think is more so the folklore than any actual media, because my parents were really poor. My dad remembers, like, there was one kid in his village that had a TV, so, like, all the kids would go there. So not a lot of media that they consumed, but a lot of it was just kind of just being passed down. Stuff like La Llorona and Chupacabra, and they would talk to me about. But I think kind of not having that media passed down from generation to generation made me more curious, like, just like American culture in general, because I didn't have any of that growing up. We didn't watch too many movies at home or anything where I was like, oh, like, there's something, like, dark, like, there's darkness like that I can consume. You know.
Yeah, there's something about, I guess that's sort of, like, what it is ultimately, like, the horror genre is just being, like, interested in darker, like, the dark side of life. And I don't know exactly when that it's just, like, always been a thing, I guess. I don't know, I don't remember, like, forming that at all. I just remember always being, like, kind of drawn to it.
I feel like there's different ways, though, because it's, like, such a vast thing, because I think you're right that it's being drawn to something dark, but I know for me there's certain drawn to something darks that work and some that do not, you know? Like, I don't like thrillers necessarily. I don't like, which I guess I would argue, and you guys might too, that those aren't really horror. Usually.
There's some exceptions. There can be elements of horror in a thriller, but I don't think that I don't know the genre typically I would describe as horror. No. I think there's a big difference between being scared and being, like, disturbed.
Or being fucking stressed out. Thrillers are just stressful to me.
Yeah, I guess it is. I thought, like, seeing, like, Get Out, like, I mean, it's a scary movie. It's a good movie. And it definitely has some horror elements, but I was, like, biting my nails during that movie. It was, like...
it's stressful.
Yeah.
But I would say it's horror. Movie. I would say it's not thriller.
I think it definitely has a lot of horror in it.
I think that line is getting, like, more blurred now. Especially with the new movies that are coming out.
I always see thrillers as more, like, rooted in some sort of pseudo-reality, at least. Where it's, like, there's no... I don't know. That's probably going to give me... It feels like there's no, like, magical element to it. Because even with slasher films, you know, those guys are indestructible. Like, they are not human. Yeah. They cannot die. Or even with Get Out, like, that science where they're, like, doing the brain transplant. Like, that is magical. That's magic. You know, that's not actual science. So I think about, like, that magical... And what I like about horror is escapist. I mean, I like when it's a satire and it has some sort of commentary on the real world. But when it's, you know... something that's too rooted in the real world, like if I'm watching Law and Order SVU, like I'm just gonna get depressed. You know, it's not gonna be
or like Taken or whatever would be like a horror. I mean, it would be like a thriller kind of suspense movie, and that's like I have no interest in that.
Right, and that's kind of how personally, and you guys might disagree because this is horror for sure, but I don't like torture porn because for me it just gets me depressed. Like it doesn't get me scared, I just get bummed. And I don't watch horror to get bummed. I watch horror to get pumped. Like, I want to feel kind of excited or, like, that adrenaline, but in a good way. And so when people tell me I don't like horror because I don't like to be scared, that's fair. I respect the hell out of that, you know? I like to be scared, so I think that's where I'm at.
And I like to be fucked up. That's, like, another thing.
That's less me. I want to be safe.
Yeah, no, that's something that Candace and I have in common.
Yeah.
I feel like we probably both did the whole, like, how fucked up of a movie I can watch.
Right, like what is the most fucked up thing that I can look at? Yeah.
I don't like that shit. Like Martyrs, hated that movie.
I love Martyrs.
I that movie. Too. I liked it.
I don't, because I can watch it, but I'm like, I wasted my time.
It just didn't do anything.
There's no enjoyment. Yeah. I just am like, this sucks. Like I can understand. I guess I can appreciate from a technical aspect, like great makeup, great acting, great that, but I don't want to see someone get fucking flayed alive. Do you know what I mean? It just doesn't appeal to me. So, but that's me, and that's not everyone.
After I graduated high school, I made a group of friends who was really into watching just like fucked up horror movies. And they liked all kind of horror movies, but like for the most part, we tried to find like really crazy ones to watch. And I don't know if y'all have ever seen the Feast movies.
No.
It's like post-apocalyptic. There's monsters and like just it's over the top ridiculous. And there's a scene, I think it's in Feast 2, where they have a baby with them. Like the group does. And like I think if I recall correctly, the person whose baby is like already dead at some point, so they just have this baby. And there's a scene where like they're running away from the monsters, and this person's like he has the baby, he's running, and he realizes he's not gonna make it, and so he chucks the baby like in the air, and there's this very long scene of the baby like flying through the air, and like there's like this like kind of triumphant music playing like when this baby like flying, and they don't catch the baby.
Oh my god!
And I'm in this room, probably like 15 to 20 people who like all just are like super invested, and it just erupts. Like everybody's like just screaming and like cheering.
Oh my god!
It was like the funniest experience. It was just like we're like so invested in seeing this baby get smushed.
Right. That seems campy as hell, which I'm totally about.
It was dope, yeah.
Like camp, if something crosses into... Okay, I would do it. Because if something crosses into camp, it's different for me.
Yeah.
Like torture porn is not camp, you know? It's like that...
Especially not like Martyrs.
Right, right. And I guess I haven't really fully
like serious torture
explored
porn.
the genre or whatever of torture porn, but it's like... camp, fucking yes. Like Peter Jackson's early shit, hell yeah. I'll watch the hell out of that shit, you know?
Yeah.
That's fun for me. Any sort of camp. If it's gore like that, yes.
And you're like, I'm going to hell.
Yeah. But I guess even... It doesn't have to just be... I like realistic stuff like Gerald's Game. Did you guys see Gerald's Game?
Yes. I have not.
I
You need
did.
to watch that
I hear people
shit.
talking about it all the time.
There is probably the nastiest thing I've ever seen in a film.
The new
And I
one,
won't
right?
even say what
The
it
one
is.
on Netflix.
Yeah, because I don't want to ruin what it is. But
Okay.
it was the nastiest thing I've ever seen. And I've seen a lot of horror. So, like, I've seen nasty shit. But I felt it. You know? But it was good. I loved that movie. That was a great adaptation. Which was another reason why Haunting of Hill House was so fucking disappointing at the
So
end.
sad. And it
It's the
fucked
same
me up
filmmaker.
so hard in the first few episodes.
It is so good. Until it's not. You've seen it. Nope.
No.
Okay. We'll watch it.
We'll watch it.
It's scary!
So we were talking about our first horror memories, and the one that kept popping up in my head was an X-Files episode that I watched that I didn't realize was an X-Files episode until way too deep into it. It was the year 2000, so I was 8.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I remember, I think my parents were busy, they were watching TV in the living room and I was in the bedroom, and I turned it on and I laid in bed, and I thought it was an episode of Cops at first because of the way that it's shot. I had no idea what was happening. The X-Files episode is called X-Cops, and it was season 7, episode 12. And it follows a cop that gets radioed for a house call because the lady saw a monster. So he goes, and there's a Mexican lady just screaming, like, monster, monster, like, he's gonna kill me, he's gonna kill me. And I'm watching this again. I'm thinking it's actually happening, and it's a Mexican lady, like all of my neighbors are.
Episode of Cops.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh my god, like, is this happening? And then the cop thinks that it's a dog. So she's screaming, monster, monster, and the cop thinks that she's just talking about a dog. And then the cop gets attacked by, like, this thing that we don't see. So it's shaky cam, you can't see what's happening, and then Scully and Mulder finally show up, and it turns out that they're at that same scene investigating a werewolf that got reported to them. And I didn't know who the hell they were. I was like, this white people in ill-fitting jackets. But then when Scully and Mulder show up, they mention that they're in Compton. So, like, hi.
So close.
Yes, I lived in Southgate, so it was 5 miles from there. So
Oh my god,
yeah,
dude! And
freaking
you
out.
still think it's real?
Yeah, I'm like, who are these people? And I kind of caught on a little bit. I was like, they're acting kind of weird. This isn't how normal people act. But it was still really scary, especially because of the shaky cam. I don't think I'd ever seen anything like that before. That wasn't the news. The
Yeah,
shaky
this
cam.
is like a weird. This is like kind of an early example of like found footage.
Mhm.
Even I don't
Yeah.
know like when like the Blair Witch Project came out, but that was
It
like
was
supposed to
shortly
be like
after
that.
groundbreaking.
But then kind of Mulder kind of pieces it together that the monster must be changing shape based on the person that sees it. And the cop that got attacked this whole time, he is not wanting to say what he saw. Like, he seems like embarrassed. And then he finally confesses to Mulder that it's the Wasp Man. And he's like, what the fuck is that? It's like, oh, that's a monster that my brother told me about when I was growing up. So it was like the scariest thing in his head. But now, like, looking back at it, it was a really well done episode that I just happened to stumble upon. So that being my introduction to X-Files was very strange.
That is funny.
Yeah, it was a lot to jump into, especially at 8 years old.
Yeah.
But I remember having nightmares. Because then I started thinking, what's the thing that scares me the most?
Right. It's like kind of psychological, like
Mm-hmm.
intellectual introduction to horror.
Yeah. And it's shot in an interesting way. So it was just kind of a lot for that to be my introduction to horror.
So, when you said like you had nightmares about it and it like super scared you, did you feel like you needed to like go get your parents and say like,
No,
I
I
was
just
so
kept
scared?
watching because it was a rerun marathon. So I just kept watching X-Files after that. I was
Yeah.
like, this is fine, and just kept watching it when I probably should not have.
Yeah, I definitely felt like I didn't want my parents to like not let me watch
Yeah.
scary stuff anymore.
Mhm.
As like when I got older, like sometimes I would like freak myself out and I would, hit up my friends and be like, what are you guys doing? I'm not scared, I'm just, chilling, whatever. I'd like gone and like sought people out because I didn't want to like be by myself because I was scared. But Not as a kid, I would just tough it out.
Yeah.
I was like, I guess this is just my life now.
Yeah, this is it. There's definitely like a weird addiction feeling towards horror where you're like, oh, like, can I get that scared again? Can I get that scared again?
Yeah.
Like, you know.
And it, increasingly, as you get older, the answer is like,
The
no,
answer
nothing
is no.
scares me anymore.
Unfortunately.
Dead inside.
So I don't know. I mean, the Twilight Zone I watched, I was probably like 9 or 10. I remember seeing a little bit of Jurassic Park because my dad was watching it, but my mom said, you have to go to bed. So I remember there being dinosaurs. It's not scary. It's action adventure. It's not horror.
It's not horror, but there is a scene where, like, whatever, the guy gets ate when he's on the toilet, and I thought that was pretty scary.
That's a good one.
You're like, I can't shit
Yeah,
without getting eaten.
That
was
one
the scariest
freaked
thing to me. Is dying in the middle of his shit.
You've never felt the same every time you sit on the toilet. Yeah, that's scary. So I
Very vulnerable.
I don't even know. I mean, it was mostly the book, so it was definitely. I became obsessed. I think in 5th grade, maybe 4th or 5th, with accumulating all of the best urban legends. So I started reading urban legends from around the world. You know, scary stories to tell in the dark, and so. You know, I loved the knock, knock, knock on the car door.
Oh, yeah.
The Hook one was pretty good too. But I had amassed, like, I was obsessed. Like, I wanted to be the chronicler of urban legends. I don't know.
I had that feeling too.
They're so fun.
Yeah.
I
And then you
definitely
can scare the
collected
shit out of your
ghost
friends.
stories
Yeah,
at
like,
one
oh,
point.
well, have
Yeah,
you heard about
dude.
this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wanted to, like, I kind of minorly wanted to ghost hunt when I was a kid, too. I remember my dad and I going to this library in southern Indiana, where I grew up. It wasn't that. It was probably, like, 2 hours or something. It wasn't, like, a crazy trip. But I heard it was supposedly haunted. And I wanted to go see the Gray Lady in the library. And so, yeah, we went there, and I didn't see any ghosts. I've never seen a ghost, even though I really want to. And, I just sat and read Goosebumps for a while, and then we were
Called
like,
it
well,
good.
let's go home. Yeah.
I've never seen a ghost. I've heard the South is much more haunted than the rest of America.
That makes sense.
I know people that have seen ghosts in the South,
Yeah.
but I also don't actually believe in ghosts. But I love the idea of them.
I don't really either. I just want them, I want them to, like, disprove it to me. I want them to prove me wrong. I want them to come out and say, hey, Candace, fuck you. I'm real.
Yeah, that'd be nice. I would like that
Yeah.
too.
That's the worst
I
ghost
would
I've ever heard.
I would love a fuck you from a ghost. This is me as a ghost.
Hi, Candace. I'm a ghost. Fuck you.
I just write it in, like, the steam on the bathroom mirror. I'm like, fuck you, I'm a ghost.
Ghost hunting, huh? I've been wanting to do ghost hunting here.
I would love to.
I actually had somebody ask me about that, and I don't remember where, but
Here?
yes, somebody was like, oh, like, I'm doing, like, a ghost hunting thing.
What?
And I tried to make a mental note, and I just completely fucking forgot.
Because I don't know any actual ghost hunters, because I would ghost hunt so fucking hard.
Yeah, we could
I don't have the equipment.
We could do, like, a ghost hunting episode or something if we have the stuff.
We need the stuff. We need the goods.
The stuff.
I had a lady, a Lyft driver person the other day, put on the child locks in her car. She was showing me, like, the ghost tracker on her phone and all the ghosts that were supposedly following us.
What?
And she wouldn't let me get out of the car.
I'm
That
sorry.
is horrifying.
It was really scary.
What?
I like that there's, like, ghost app.
There's, like, some ghost tracker app, and she saw all the ghosts on it and wanted to tell me about
How
it.
are they tracking the ghosts?
I don't know, but there were a lot of them according to the app.
Wow.
It's not safe. You cannot leave.
No, maybe that was it. She was like, be careful out there.
Are there in-app purchases for that app?
Yes,
like,
probably,
what is?
yeah.
You
To
unlock
find out the
poltergeist.
backstory of this ghost.
You can see which ghosts are in your area and single.
Single ghosts in your area.
I'm down.
Yeah, I'm into it.
I'm trying to think of some terrible Tinder pun, and it's not coming to me, but it's there somewhere.
We'll edit it in and post.
Perfect.
I almost squirt wine out of my nose.
Where is the wine? Where did it go?
Oh, it's here.
Candace is hoarding it.
Hiding it.
I hoarded the
Thank
wine.
you.
There's some left, and I have another bottle.
Good.
Sprouting out of that, I do kind of feel like being a horror fan is like something about like how much real life is scary.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like real life is scary and
Yes.
it's directly tied into your desire to be scared by horror movies?
I think part of it might be, like, if I scare myself with this, I'll be less scared of real life.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, this big Hollywood production of a horror thing. If I'm like not scared of that, then I can be safe.
Like you're practicing.
Yeah.
Like I'm practicing for life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've been interested in that. I remember wanting to know. I mean, in college I wrote this, but like this research paper on like horror films and everything, and looking at the different theories of why is everyone obsessed with horror. I mean, you know, people look down on the genre, but box office wise, like it always does well. You could spend $0
really
and
like
make
it.
a lot of money. People go see horror films. So, like, what is it? And there's always that, you know, there's the idea that it's because it reinforces gender, which was an interesting theory of like women want to
Feel safe, or
sure, they want to go with their dude, and the guy wants to be like, I'll protect you, and the girl wants to be like, you have your arm around me. So there's that.
It's a safe date.
There's a gender roles
see
thing.
A scary movie.
But that's definitely not been why. Like that is definitively not why horror appeals to me. I could see the validity of that, but it's not.
Oh, not at all.
No, I was like, I don't think, and I know most girls that love horror, that's not why they love horror. So that isn't it. But then that other argument of, yeah, I mean, being it mirroring real life or people who've seen shit, you know, and particularly with women, like women handling trauma and having to handle, I mean, it's just, it comes with the territory. So being able to practice, I guess you're right, practice the emotion, and it feels productive. I mean, for me, it's always straight up an escapism. Like, it's just for me, which is, I know we're gonna talk about later, but you know, talking about horror fan in 2019, like, I need some fucking escapism. It is dark as hell.
Yeah.
But also, the book that we got the name of the podcast from, I'm Not Your Final Girl, by Claire Holland, she talks about that. She talks about Lori in Halloween, and she says, you know, like, tell me a small town in the United States that this doesn't happen. That there's a strange man behind you and you're scared.
I love that poem. Yeah. It's super relatable.
Yeah.
And to look at that idea of, we idolize Freddy, we idolize Jason, you know, and what about, I mean, the final girl is such an interesting concept because it is a woman, you know, and there's certain rules that woman has to kind of fit into, but, you know, looking at why is this genre so popular? This genre is popular with men too, and it's forcing the audience, whether they're men or women or non-binary, it doesn't fucking matter. They're identifying with a woman who is the main character and is making it through, and has to face hell, but is fucking making it
ideal. Like, I'm sure at some point we'll do a whole episode on the final girl, but I do feel like it's like something where it's like you have to pass like a certain like battery of tests in order to make it all the way through. And not all of them have to do with like actually having survival skills. A lot of them have to do with how much the audience likes you and wants you to survive.
Yes, definitely.
Well, and also like the sexual thing, right? Like, you can't be super promiscuous. You can't be the virgin, like, because those two die.
Be not white.
I feel like the final girl is usually virginal, though. The final girl is a virgin,
but she's not a prude either.
Oh, right.
You know what
yeah,
I mean?
she
so
just,
there's kind of that balance. The cheerleader always dies, but then there's the virgin always goes first, and you're like, oh no, she didn't get to experience anything, and then she dies.
It's tragic.
Yeah,
I've never particularly identified with the final girl archetype. I feel like I'd be gone.
You have asthma.
I have asthma. Bad reflexes.
Okay, we've talked about a lot, but I think we haven't really talked about being a female horror fan in.
No, and it's weird to say. I feel myself like, okay, a lot of women are into horror. In fact, it seems like it probably makes up over 50% of the fan base of the genre. And yet I feel like all my life it seemed like a really male space.
Yes.
I was a pretty solitary consumer up until probably like after I graduated high school. So I was like already like an adult in the world. But, you know, I watched horror movies with like pretty much like a group of male friends. Being online, interacting with like horror stuff on the internet seems like it if you're seeking that stuff out, it seems like a really like almost like kind of dangerous male space.
Hostile. It feels hostile.
Yes, being on like 4chan, definitely, you know, like I'm like, I just came here to look at dead people or whatever. You just end up in like this extremely misogynistic space.
Oh god.
Which, you know, not like that was like an innocent pursuit in the first place, but it just, you know, it's just like, that's like a bit off more than I can chew, I guess. Like, it's just always felt it was not something that was for women at all. So it always kind of felt like something I was, you know, that I was like barging into.
Right. You have to kind of force your space.
Yeah, which is like probably most of my interests, I guess, have felt predominantly male.
I really feel that because I feel like as a younger kind of female horror fan, I felt the need to prove myself, and I think that's why I was attracted to like saying I watched this movie and like I watched this and like have you watched this? Like you feel like you have to
like,
prove
that's
yourself.
really fucked up. Did you watch something that fucked up?
Yeah. I definitely feel that, and you kind of have to be bold too about taking up space.
Well, that's I think male fans are pretty much across the board very fucking aggressive. Yes. Like whether it's horror or it's comics or it's some other thing that that's there. They're so fucking loud and aggressive, and they want you to prove, like, it feels like you're going into the treehouse and it says like no girls allowed, but it's not necessarily indicative of the genre. You know, because you're right. I think there's a lot of women. I mean, when I was growing up, I was in a super religious space. So for me, it was just, it didn't feel necessarily gendered. It just felt like I loved horror and no one else did. So it wasn't necessarily because I was alone, because I was a girl. It was I was alone, and people thought, like, not only did they not like horror, but it was, like, morally repulsive to like horror, you know? So that was weird. But then growing up, I mean, definitely, once I got out of there, it was definitely more male. But it's just such a weird thing because there's so much, I think with horror, there is so much great female representation, and it's light years ahead of a lot of the other genres out there for women. And so it's just kind of funny. It's kind of like, well, joke's on you, assholes. Like, you're identifying with Ripley, and she's a fucking woman. Yeah. You know, like,
yeah, because
that's it for me.
Aliens is a horror movie.
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and that, I mean, it's funny because they actually didn't want that. They did not envision when they wrote the script, they did not think it was going to be a woman. When they had the idea, it was not a woman. But Sigourney Weaver is a badass, so, you know, it happened. But yeah, I think it's, you see so much representation over the years and it's changed, but it's, you've had women for so long and in a role that's strong as hell. And even before that, I mean, you had film noir, you had the femme fatale, and yeah, they're problematic, but they're women and they're doing shit that you don't get to see normally.
Right.
So I love that, and getting to see them being unusual. It's hard. I think women, when we like stuff, we're not as loud. You're right. We don't take up space. But the problem is, not only do you lose out because the loud assholes are winning, but then you lose out because it's hard for us to meet each other. I'm glad we did, but it's hard for us to connect and understand, oh my God, women like it. Yeah. There's nothing like wrong with it. We're all cool, and we might like different stuff about it, but we can all have that common platform, which is neat.
Yeah. That's why it felt really natural, like this progression from just friendship to like, hey, let's fucking record ourselves talking, because
which is not a normal progression usually, but I understand
not.
What you're saying.
Usually
absolutely
it is not.
Yes.
But the conversations that we've had just watching movies together, I feel like it's been something that I've wanted to get out for a really long time, with people that understood, not with like a dude bro that I'm drinking whiskey with.
Right, and I feel like I've had such contentious relationships with, I mean, like, the interests that I have are really closely tied, right? Like, I like punk rock, and I like horror movies, and I like metal, and whatever, and I think that I've had really contentious interactions with the people that I've known who have also liked these things, including, you know, sort of in situations where, like, a lot of the people I've watched horror movies with, I've tried to have conversations with them about, like, how are women being portrayed in this? Like, why are you dudes just really into watching women being tortured. Why is that like something that appeals to you? And it's, you know, something that I want to have a conversation about, and they don't. And the times that I've ended up like, you know, just shouting at people and storming out of the room, like it's been like not a place where I can have a productive discussion with people. It just feels really combative. Which of course I'm super drawn to in a lot of ways, but it's nice to be able to get somewhere with someone that you're talking to about horror movies.
Well, and I think it's interesting because I know like women have had a great place, I think, in horror, although there's a lot of examples where even the great representation is problematic. And then, you know, there's the definite discussion of race in horror too, because even if you can argue that women have had a good go in horror, it's white women. It's white women that have mostly had a good go in horror, and there's the whole discussion of race in horror, and that's really, it's problematic. It's also really fascinating to look at, like to look at that great documentary that came out, Horror Noir, this year.
On Shudder.
Yes, that looks at race in horror and kind of how it's progressed or how it hasn't progressed even. The decade argument never works for me because, like, I when people are like, it was a different time, I'm like, there is right and wrong. There's right and wrong, and something's fucked up or it's not fucked up. Do you know what I mean? Like,
well, and there'll be examples of people who didn't think that way.
Sure,
from that time period.
So what were they, like fucking aliens or something, or like did they time travel from the future? So like but I get what you're saying because you can drive yourself crazy with it. You can absolutely, and I love classic horror cinema, you know, and like I literally run a film series that is classic horror cinema at the library. So I play a lot of stuff. And you know what is like very cathartic sometimes is playing those old movies, like when we watch, which I love Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that was...
And you went, and we had a great time, because it's a great movie, and the design is amazing, and we all know, you know, Millicent Patrick designed the creature, with that book that just came out.
Oh, The Lady from the
Black Lagoon, which is fucking amazing.
O'Mara?
Yep. And so it's a great movie, but there are moments, right, where it's definitely of its time, like it was made in a certain era, and the dudes are being sexist or whatever.
Yeah.
And the audience laughing at just how ridiculous that was.
That is very cathartic.
How fun is that?
Yeah, no, that's great because it's saying like, hey, we see this too as general.
Yeah.
Just human people, we see that this is ridiculous.
And it's not even like, you know, I don't even think it's like a making fun of in that moment. It's just like collectively, hey, isn't that funny that was okay back then?
Yeah, wow, that was real fucked up, huh?
And I think having a sense of humor about it is fair. I love that.
Yeah.
But I think you're right that you can drive yourself crazy. I could talk till I'm blue in the face about how Vertigo makes me mad. And sometimes that's fun, and then sometimes it's rein it in, you know?
To talk a lot about Ghost Ship, but I didn't at all. So someday we're gonna have to like devote a whole episode to me talking about Ghost Ship.
We need an entire 30 minutes to talk about the people getting cut in half scene in
Honestly,
Ghost Ship. Because that and the ghost titties in 13 Ghosts.
Oh my god,
is so formative to...
Also spoilers, because I haven't seen
that shit either. Okay,
Ghost Titties is not a spoiler.
And the people getting cut in half is literally the first scene.
And it's great.
Ship.
I don't care. I also don't care about spoilers. Full disclosure.
Yeah, true. Same.
You can tell me the whole plot and I would still watch it with you.
Yeah, that was... Ghost Ship was the first R-rated movie I ever saw in the theater.
Oh, you saw it? I saw it on Sci-Fi.
I remember the cover, like, well. I remember it well.
That great, like
the ship.
I will never forget.
Yeah.
Well, and I worked, my first job was Blockbuster, so I remember the covers for a lot of shit.
Hell yeah.
That I never watched.
This podcast will not age well. What is a Blockbuster?
What is a Blockbuster?
Yeah, I worked at Family Video for a second.
Nice.
Oh, what are we thinking for future episodes? Things that we...
Well, I realized a couple of them, like, sort of as we were talking. I feel like we should do one that's, like, on the final girl.
Just as a trope.
As an
like
archetype, yes. And, yeah, like, I'm sure we'll do, like, a kind of, like, I'm sure we'll do, like, genres, like, best of, like, whatever horror subgenre kind of thing. I would like to watch, like, all of a series.
Yeah.
And talk about it.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, one idea that I had that I'm really excited about, and to see if we can kind of make it come to fruition, is I wanted to do like an Oscars, but for the horror genre, because it gets ignored so much. So I feel like we could go through the categories and, you know, best makeup, best film design, best fucking whatever. I think that would be fun.
Yes, I
Yeah,
absolutely agree.
Like within a year sort of thing, like within 2019.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing because I need to watch more like current
I need to
horror
catch
movies.
up.
Yeah.
There's a lot of shit I saw though from this year that I'm not like super impressed with. So that'll be interesting. There's a lot that I still need to watch though.
Yeah. And there's some stuff that we like disagree on too. So
Oh yeah. There's definitely stuff we disagree on. That'll be fun. We can duke it out. We can talk about Blair Witch and the sequel. And my evangelistic
Absolutely.
approach to
Ariel
Blair Witch 2,
screaming
Book of
about
Shadows.
Blair Witch 2.
Oh yes, absolutely. Well, Ariel will scream about Blair Witch.
This will be a
But it will be
solo-
like a scream where I'm like, you need to watch it.
Yeah.
No, we need to
can-
boycott. We need to write letters and ask for it to be released, right? Because they have all
Yeah, the director's cut.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So we'll tackle that. I'm
Yeah.
sure we'll all scream about things. I have things that I would like to scream
Lots of
about.
screaming will happen. Mhm.
Yeah, we'll scream and we'll watch stuff and we'll probably do some genre studies and we'll talk about some tropes
Definitely some tropes.
and we'll probably talk to some people who know more about this shit in some areas than we do.
Because we don't know I don't know shit.
No, we don't know anything. So if you out there are versed in the horror genre and you have some cool shit that you want to talk to us about, like, hit us up, please.
Yeah, we want to talk to you.
Where can you email us, Gabby?
We have an email. It's nyfgpod@gmail.com. And it's same anywhere else other than Facebook because they're being really creepy right now. So Twitter, Instagram.
Facebook is Big Brother.
Facebook is Big Brother.
In
Twitter,
case you're wondering.
Instagram, Facebook is evil, but we'll be on that too.
Eventually. We will give in.
We should thank some people. We should
Yeah, we
thank
should.
Claire Holland for our namesake, Not Your Final Girl, from her fantastic book of poetry.
Yeah, get
about
that book.
horror. Please check it out and follow her also on social media because she retweets some cool shit that I look at every day.
Oh, her Twitter handle is Claire
God.
H. Writes.
And then we have to thank Gaby. This Gaby, but
Other
also
Gaby.
another Gaby.
Other
Yeah,
Gabby.
thank you, Gabby, for being on the show. Thank you.
Thanks, Gaby, for being on the show. Gaby. Well, for real, though, thank you, Gaby. What would we do without you?
I don't know.
We wouldn't have got this far.
No, certainly not.
No, but then there's another Gaby who is a beautiful artist. Speaking
Local
of,
artist.
And we'll hopefully get her on later because she does a lot of cool horror shit.
Oh,
She's
she
some
does.
very cool as shit.
And she does our art. We haven't seen it yet, but I'm sure it's real fucking cool.
Oh,
It'll be
I'm sure it's fantastic.
We trust her implicitly.
And you should follow her on Instagram. Her Instagram handle is Rabbit Foods.
Thanks, listeners.
All right, thanks, listeners.
Thank you.
Listen to you next time. Hear you next time.
Listen to you next time, buddy.
Just another sleepless night. You toss and turn until you sweat. Put on a perfume out of spite. But I'm not done with you just yet. While you're counting sheep, I'm prowling just outside the bed. Mind the company you keep. Well, I may be a monster, but you want me as your friend.